So today, we're going to talk about a scholar whose impact was so deep, so profound, that for a lot of people, listening to anyone else just wasn't the same after hearing him. It's a story about unbelievable conviction, a huge sacrifice, and a legacy that's still shaping lives today. Let's get into it. I mean, just think about that for a second. What would make someone say something like that? This quote, it just perfectly captures the kind of magnetic pull Sheikh AlHuweyni had. It wasn't just about the information he was sharing, it was about the standard, he said. He really changed the game, and that's the story we're going to unpack. You know, there's this prophetic tradition that says sacred knowledge doesn't just fade away. It's literally taken from the earth when the scholars themselves pass on. So when a figure like this is gone, it's not just a personal loss. It feels like a piece of the world's wisdom has just vanished. Okay, so let's start with the big question. Who was Sheikh AlHuweyni, really? And what was it about him that made so many people feel this deep personal connection? Well, he was born Hijazi, but everyone knew him as Abu Ishaaq AlHuweyni, which tied him forever to his little village in Egypt. And he often said that his greatest blessing in life was a prayer his mother made for him. She would pray, "May Allah make his creation love you and the pebbles on the ground love you." And when you look at his life, it's pretty clear that prayer was answered.
But here's the crazy part. The path that made him so beloved was a path he almost didn't take at all. He was actually on track for a totally different, you could say, a much more prestigious future. And that brings us to the one decision that changed absolutely everything.
As a young man, he was a total academic powerhouse. He loved poetry, he loved languages, and he was so good that he graduated at the very top of his class as an expert in Spanish. In fact, he was so brilliant, he got handpicked for this super exclusive program to study in Spain. You know, the kind of opportunity that's a once-in-a-lifetime shot. So, this put him at a massive crossroads. On one side, you've got this incredible moonshot career in Europe, a life of comfort and prestige. But on the other side, there was this burning passion growing inside him for the science of hadith, the traditions of the Prophet Muhammad. And the longer he stayed in Spain, the more it felt like he was living a double life, like he was betraying his real purpose.
And so he did something that most people would think is just crazy. Right in the middle of the program, he just walked away. He left it all behind, returned to Egypt, and decided to dedicate his entire life to secret knowledge, just trusting that somehow everything would work out.
And this decision is what led him to develop this really unique way of doing things, a method that let him have a massive impact on two completely different worlds at the same time. He had this personal motto that explains his entire approach perfectly. "My tongue is for the masses, and my pen is for the specialists." Seriously, that one sentence is the key to his whole life's work. He saw two different jobs that needed to be done, and he came up with a plan to do both. And here's how he pulled it off. With his tongue, he became a public icon. We're talking thousands upon thousands of lectures that made these deep, complex ideas feel personal, relatable, and accessible to everybody. But then, with his pen, he was a scholar's scholar. He wrote these super dense, technical books on hadith that were absolutely crucial for the experts in the field. It's a balance that very, very few people have ever managed to pull off.
Now, you have to understand, choosing this path was not easy. Back in the 60s and 70s, defending tradition, well, it came with huge challenges. And it was these struggles that really forged the core message he would champion for the rest of his life. He faced alienation for having views that others thought were strange, and he was even thrown in prison for his beliefs. And there's this incredible story from his time in prison that just says it all. Food was really scarce, and he saw some of the older inmates eating bitter orange peels just to survive. So he tried one, and he swore it tasted sweeter than the orange itself. He saw it as a sign, a little miracle. But get this, when he was released and tried it again, it was just as bitter as you'd imagine. For him, the lesson was crystal clear. Faith can make even the most bitter hardships sweet. This whole experience really shaped his message, which he often framed using a term that can sound a little jarring, Kedipatul Idam. Now, in modern Arabic, that can translate to death squad, but that's not what it means here at all. In its classical hadith context, it refers to something totally different, a small vanguard of soldiers who absolutely refuse to retreat. They either win or they die on the field, but they never give up ground. And that idea was the absolute heart of his message. He would tell people over and over again, your job is not to win. Your job is to just hold your fort. What he meant was, your responsibility is to be like that vanguard,
to stand firm on your principles, don't give up an inch, and just hold your ground until reinforcements arrive, even if those reinforcements take generations to come. This message of just holding on, of persevering, it defined his entire life, right up to his very last days, where his legacy was kind of sealed by a series of really powerful symbolic events.
I mean, his dedication was just on another level. His sons shared photos from his final days in the hospital, and there he was, frail, surrounded by books, still spending up to 15 hours a day reading and writing. For him, the work was simply never done.
And for his followers, even the timing of his death was just filled with meaning. He passed away on a Monday and was buried on a Tuesday, the exact same days of the week as the Prophet Muhammad, whose traditions he had dedicated his life to defending. And the date? The 17th of Ramadan, the anniversary of the legendary Battle of Badr. But the story takes one final, almost unbelievable twist. Just 12 days before the Sheikh died, a well-known author posted online about a really strange dream he'd had. At the time, he had no idea what it could possibly mean. He dreamt that the power went out across all of Egypt, plunging the entire country into complete darkness. He knew it was the middle of Ramadan, so there should have been a big, bright full moon lighting up the sky. But when he looked up, there was nothing. The moon was just gone. The sky was pitch black. 12 days later, when the Sheikh passed away, the dream suddenly made perfect sense to everyone. They all immediately remembered a famous prophetic tradition. The virtue of a scholar over a regular worshiper is like the virtue of a full moon over all the other stars. The scholar is the light that illuminates the darkness. And that really just leaves us with this final, profound question. If a great scholar is like the full moon that lights up the darkest night, then what happens to the world when that moon suddenly disappears?